The Utah Jazz gave up the ghost finally. Next on Locked on Jazz.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you to the everydayers that are out there each and every day. And thank you for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps as well as YouTube. Thank you so much. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Today's show, we'll look at day one of free agency, look back at the Donovan Mitchell trade, look at what's next, why now, the Jordan Clarkson buyout. But let's start with the concept of giving up the ghost. In the last 48 hours, the Jazz have traded Collin Sexton to Charlotte, received very little in return. Jusuf Nurkic, a backup center at this point, plus had to give up a second-round draft pick, and they got literally released, basically, for all intents and purposes, released Jordan Clarkson. The buyout, by the way, is advantageous to the team. It means the Jazz saved $1 million or so. A pure release, you just pay him. But that's basically what they did. They released him and got nothing in return. And when I say the Jazz gave up the ghost, what they've done is they've given up the ghost, the quest, to get something in value for these players. If you look at over the last, from Jordan Clarkson, we might go back to the last trade deadline when Quin Snyder's here and the team's trying to shake it up a little bit, trying to get out of its malaise at the trade deadline heading as a playoff team. But if you look at Jordan Clarkson, the fact is that the Jazz have probably had him available for somewhere in the range of 7 to 8 trade windows. And Collin Sexton has been available for somewhere in the range of 5 trade windows. And in each case, the Jazz weren't able to get what they thought was of value. And Austin Ainge was like, okay, that's enough. That's enough. We're moving on. We're clearing the deck. And we're conceding. We're giving up the ghost. We're conceding that we're not getting value for these players. Why now? Well, when you're doing it in the past and you're looking at Jordan Clarkson or Collin Sexton and you're trying to get something, there's first of all a chance on both those two players that until they became a free agent or in their final year of the deal, that it could have cost the Jazz money to actually, or assets to get rid of them. So you're certainly not going to do that. The second thing is, what was the downside? And what I think Austin Ainge has decided here is that the downside now is you're precluding your young players from getting time and minutes. And so you've got to make the move. But in the past, when you had Collin Sexton, it wasn't as though you'd look back at Keyonte George's last 2 years and say, wow, he didn't get enough minutes because Collin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson were on the roster. You wouldn't look at Isaiah Collier last year and say, well, he didn't get enough minutes. You didn't look at Cody Williams and say, wow, he really needed to get more minutes. It got awkward. It got uncomfortable with the who's playing, who's not, and Jordan getting shut down and all that stuff. And that's worth avoiding again, certainly. But the timing now is such that there is a moving Collin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson off the roster. There was a negative to having them on the roster now. That it was going to preclude Brice Sensabaugh Keyonte George, some of these guys from getting the minutes that you would hope to get and get your final evaluation on who they are. The other thing that's really interesting, if you go back to the opening press conference that Austin Ainge had, and I asked him about what he saw as the landscape being different in the NBA, one of the things he said that he no longer thought had value was expiring contracts. That you used to hold on to expiring contracts, be able to move expiring contracts and have expiring contracts have value. Clearly, that's not the case. And so Austin Ainge may have tipped our hat in his opening press conference when he said that expiring contracts don't have the value that they once had, because here are two expiring contracts that the Jazz just got off of that you used to hold on to because you could move them and someone could do this and they clear cap space and do that and these things. That's not the world we live in anymore. That you used to hold on to Jordan Clarkson and Collin Sexton's expiring contract, move them at the deadline, take on somebody else's money so that they could clear cap space so they can make the run at Giannis or LeBron. That doesn't seem to be where we are. And so the value proposition on the market clearly for Sexton and Clarkson was zero or close to. So there's two questions if I was a Jazz fan I'd be asking. One is, did we miss the window? Was there a trade that could have been made in the previous 4 trade windows with Collin Sexton? Once he was healthy that first year, then there were probably 3 windows. Or with Jordan Clarkson. It's hard to take this in because when you look at Collin Sexton averaging 19 points a game and shooting nearly 50% in the way he scores, but it doesn't look like small guards that aren't all-stars are getting much of any market right now. Matt George of Locked On Kings tweeted out last night he couldn't believe that Malik Monk had no market. Former 6th man of the year. And Jordan Clarkson the last 2 years has really not been good. And the question for the Knicks is going to be whether or not he's cooked or whether that was the situation. But Jordan has had an effective field goal percentage the last 2 years of 47, and last year was a little better at 49%. The 47 was one of the least efficient players in all the NBA. I'm guessing it was somewhat environment. He's probably a pretty fresh 33, having only played 90 games the last 2 years. And the Knicks signed him on a minimum, frankly, so if they don't like what they're getting, they can just release him. So where we sit now is very clear. So why now? The answer on why now is because roads were being blocked. Should have the Jazz done this earlier? Is a very legitimate question. Because there was an awkwardness to what we were doing last year. But I think the Jazz were holding out hope that at some point you could get something, increase your asset for Sexton or Clarkson. Either one of two things is why they didn't do it earlier. One is they were hoping that at some point Sexton or Clarkson would have some value, that the market hadn't would yield it. Or two, Sexton and Clarkson actually had negative value and that they would have had to give up assets to get them off to clear and avoid some of the awkwardness of last year. Here's the one time that I wonder whether it would have changed the whole trajectory of this, where I wonder if the Jazz could have done something. They had traded Donovan, they had traded Rudy, and there was a trade on the board, rumored, and I think because of the way it plays out in the future, you know it was legit. That I believe was Mike Conley, Bojan Bogdanovic, maybe some other piece to the Lakers for Russell Westbrook's contract. And if you believe the reports at the time, it got caught up on draft picks. And I think the reports were the Jazz wanted 3 first-round draft picks and the Lakers were giving 2. And then the deal kind of gets done that offseason at the midway mark when we trade Mike Conley and we get a first-round draft pick, top 4 protected, and Vanderbilt and a bunch of pieces. The only question I have in this whole process is, had the Jazz made that deal, maybe not getting the best, maybe only getting 1 pick early, would we have had less of this kind of what are we doing, period, rather than the clarity we had of what we were doing last year, as awkward as it is, and the clarity of what we're doing next year, which is just a bunch of young players trying to develop and get better as a group. We had no clarity the first 2 years. And I wonder whether or not, had we pulled that Westbrook trade at that point, would have that given clarity in this process could have been in a different stage. Maybe not, but maybe. Because right now, where Austin Ainge is positioned, it's very clear. The only question is what's next. And let's put John Collins, and let's talk a little bit about Jordan Clarkson, but let's put John Collins into the same equation that I just put Collin, Sexton, and Jordan Clarkson in, and see what we think is going to happen next on Locked On Jazz. Tuesday edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by our friends over at Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. The Hyundai car is incredible. My dad just bought the Ioniq 6. We just drove it to San Francisco for him. It was amazing. Actually, I found doing the long distance drive with an electric car to be a better experience than the gas car. Definitely took a little longer, but I will share with you that like you're getting out and stopping every hour and 45, 2 hours to charge up for 20 minutes. You move. I liked it way more. I was psycho. I did 30 squats and 30 lunges on each side, front and back. You're right. I did all my stupid stuff. 2,000 steps every time I stopped, but I actually felt great at the end of both of them. The Hyundai cars are amazing. We have the 5, the new Santa Fe I'm driving right now. It's awesome. My son has the old Santa Fe. It's probably 7, 8 years old now. Just still killing it. Doing great. We have bought 4 Hyundais, 5 if you count derivatives. Perfect on all of them. So this is legitimately telling you that the car is great. So if you're in the market, let's get you over to Murdoch Hyundai and give you the VIP treatment. Email me at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail.com. And we'll get you set up with a VIP treatment in Murray, in Logan, or in Linden. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is the official sportsbook of Locked On. And right now, FanDuel has you rolling for the summer. Whether it's baseball under the lights, golf on the greens, high-stakes soccer, WNBA, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. Following the action, want to make it a little more thrilling? Then get into the game while your friends and families are getting sunburned on the beach. You, instead, do not have to get skin cancer, be burned, and look like a lobster. You can just have the fun of winning and feeling the rush of FanDuel. Easy to use, fast to pay out, makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether you're playing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride in the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you're part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers get a $5 bet, and you get $150 in bonus bets with if your first bet wins. Let's go with if, not when. Open the FanDuel app today. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen today. All right, so my premise here on Sexton and Clarkson is that for the last 2 years, the Jazz have been hoping to get value for them. We didn't have value on the market. And then they make a decision. Can we get value in the future? Is it disadvantageous for us to keep them on the roster? Are they blocking someone and having a negative impact on our development? Or 3, the possibility that they have negative value in the market. So let's walk John Collins through this, because that's the next logical name. So number 1, it's clear John Collins doesn't have a lot of value in the market. And here's why I say this. The Jazz got him for free, right? We've got Rudy Gay in a second-round draft pick that I think we got him for free. We took his contract for free. John has been great. Last year's season was amazing. Almost 50, 40, 85. Awesome. John was pretty awesome in Atlanta too. John probably has improved what people think of him in the NBA. But he was really good in Atlanta, and we got him for free. It wasn't like he was coming off a scrap heap being a terrible player. Everyone knew like that the Duncan Demon was a pretty good player, 17th pick of the draft, had some big years, had done some good things, had been kind of caught in the Quin Snyder, Nate McMillan mix, and was great for us last year. Great. So his value is higher than free, but not dramatically. So that's one. So I don't think he has great value out there. I think the Jazz are going to run into very similar circumstances they did with Collin, Sexton, and Jordan Clarkson if they just try to move him. I don't think you're getting a first for John Collins when he was free when you got him. It would be nice. It would be incredible asset management, but it seems unlikely. So let's go to part two. Does he have negative value? Maybe. In this landscape, trying to trade the $27 million of John Collins might be difficult. There's the trade where I thought the John Collins contract could kick in was the Damian Lillard trade, where you send Dame Lillard, probably Jordan Clarkson or Collin Sexton, to Milwaukee for Dame Lillard, eat his contract, but it's got 2 years left on it, and you get I think Milwaukee only has about one first-round draft pick they can move. And I'm guessing that the Jazz decided they didn't want to do that because of the cap space next year, the flexibility, and other things. Wasn't worth that first-round pick. I'm guessing that that's the decision. Or Milwaukee decided they're holding on to Dame. Milwaukee did some creative things yesterday to get players signed, but they're kind of in a mess. So I'm guessing Milwaukee would love to get off Dame right now and get some players. So someone decided that deal didn't work for them. That, to me, was the only out I saw on what you were doing with these contracts. The third one that's most important for John Collins is John Collins prohibiting Jazz players from developing? And this is where things are super complicated. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but this is really complicated because the answer is I don't know. And I don't think the Jazz know either. So let's walk through this. If Taylor Hendricks is 100% healthy, and if Ace Bailey is ready to give 25 minutes a night, and if Cody Williams is ready to play 20 minutes a night, then yes, John Collins is blocking the route of players to get on the floor. But if Taylor Hendricks actually needs another 2 months, or if Ace Bailey needs a slow ramp up, or if Cody Williams is still as far, we cannot play Cody Williams if he was like he was at the end of last year. You can't ask your teammates to do that. Then you need John Collins' minutes. You actually need something that's viable. And so I don't know the answer on what's next with John Collins. If let's say all those things are going right, then you would start Lauri at the 3-4 with Taylor. You'd probably have Filipowski back up the 4 with Ace Bailey and Cody Williams kind of floating around in that realm, and Cody could probably play a little too if he can handle better. And then you have 96 minutes of basketball you need out of that 3-4. And so let's give it, Lauri's going to play 32 of those 96. And if Taylor's healthy, he's playing 26. And if Ace is ready, he's playing 24. Well, now we're only have 14 left for Filipowski and Cody Williams. Then John Collins is blocking the route. So we'll see what the Jazz do with John Collins. But what is clear right now is there's not a robust market. And there might be a negative market on John Collins, in which case I don't think you want to give up an asset just to move that. Might as well wait it out, see whether people need something, see what happens. So it's stark how little the Jazz are able to turn for some of these players. But I think we're seeing it somewhat universally across the marketplace. As Jordan Clarkson heads out, what a run. He gave us a vibe and an energy. You go back to the bubble. Quin Snyder credits Jordan Clarkson for bringing back together a broken team. Got caught with all the COVID mess and the Donovan and Rudy and all sorts of behind the scenes shenanigans and problems and this and that. And it was Jordan who had the keg out at the pool with the ping pong and got everybody back together in the bubble and kind of got that team to be able to make another run. Follow it, I think, the next year with the best record in the NBA. But Quin will go back to crediting Jordan. Jordan will credit Quin for finding something in him. Jordan was pretty broken when he got to Utah, if you remember his last year in Cleveland. He had kind of had a, they were good, and then they weren't good, and he had shot 32% and was kind of trying to figure himself out. And made a little run at sixth man of the year in 17-18. And then by 18-19, he comes to Utah for the final 42 games. Quin gets him going in 19-20. 2021, he wins his sixth man of the year. Has another good year in 21-22, and the last 2 years have been not as good with not that kind of players around. Mike Conley seemed to, the type of having a Mike Conley to help him was vital, but he also chameleoned it. He changed who he was all the time. His assists went from 1.6 in his first stretch with us to 5 by his fourth year. So an incredibly smart, cared an incredible amount, amazing passion to play well every night. Obviously a cool cat. Had all the vibe and energy and something that Utah hadn't had before. There was a belief that him saying Utah was okay had valued us. So super cool. What a run. What a privilege and pleasure to have him and root for him every night and have the flamethrower ignite the building. Pretty great. So thanks to Jordan. Glad he got his, over the canyons. He had his big golf tournament here kind of as his last thing, which seems really appropriate because he picked up golf while he was here, added that to his life. He's the only guy I know who can be on the Milan runway one day and sleeping in a van in Death Valley the next. That's literally who this dude is. Super interesting. He and I had some really interesting conversations of being a mixed race kid and how that's allowed him to float amongst different aspects of life, half Filipino, half Black, Filipino culture in his family, probably most important, society telling him he's Black, and this whole mix and match of how he finds himself in the midst of that world. Some really interesting conversations. He's a very interesting person. So awesome to have him. Appreciate it. Thanks for the time. Tip of the hat to JC. We will miss you. He gave all of his heart, all of his soul to the Jazz. And much love. The Donovan Mitchell trade kind of almost is set now and what it is. Plus, day one of free agency next on Locked On Jazz. The Utah Jazz traded Donovan Mitchell to the Cleveland Cavaliers. In exchange, they got Lauri Markkanen, Collin Sexton, Ochai Agbaji, a 2025 first-round pick, a 2027 first-round pick, a 2029 first-round pick, and pick swaps in 26 and 28. So as we sit here on July 1st of 2025, the trade almost is set. Here's what it is. So Lauri Markkanen, Isaiah Collier, and Phoenix's first-round pick that we just acquired in 2031. I think that's what it is. Here's why. We traded the least good of our 25, 27, and 29 picks to Phoenix for Phoenix's unprotected first and 31. That was Cleveland's pick this year. It feels like that'll be Cleveland's pick in 27. We'll see whose pick it is in 29. The 26 pick swap, which would be next year, is not happening. We will be projected 30th in the NBA. They will be projected second. And it seems unlikely that pick swap happens in 28 either. So as we sit here today, it looks like neither pick swap will come through. And that the 27th, who's going to have a better record in 2027, Minnesota or Cleveland? I would guess Cleveland at this point, but they'll be close. And 29, who knows? So if Cleveland has the better record each time, then their pick would go to Phoenix. So We took Ochai Agbaji along with Kelly Olynyk and turned it into Isaiah Collier. I think that's right. Yeah, because Simone Fontecchio was turned into Kyle Filipowski. So the Jazz Donovan Mitchell trade is now Lauri Markkanen, Isaiah Collier, and Phoenix's first-round pick for Donovan Mitchell. That's where that trade sits right now. All right, first day of free agency. By the way, if you ever take notes for a show, don't do it in light green pen, because then by the time you get in the room, you can't actually read it. Denver probably is the big win here so far. In the Western Conference, Denver's the big win. The Cam Johnson from Michael Porter Jr. trade for two reasons. One is it cleared enough money that they also got Bruce Brown. And if we paid attention to what happened this last year, depth is more important than ever. And I don't know who's better, Cam Johnson or Michael Porter Jr. But I do know that Cam Johnson, 30 minutes a night, plus Bruce Brown's 24 minutes a night is 54 minutes a night. And that Michael Porter Jr.'s 30 minutes a night is just 30. Cam Johnson doesn't stay healthy much, so that's worth keeping an eye on. But 54 minutes a night over 30 minutes a night is a massive deal of cap management. And that changes who Denver is. Atlanta got Luke Kennard and Nickeil Alexander-Walker yesterday. So Kennard playing off Trae Young could be amazing. He also is just kind of who is left-handed, nails it, shoots it, makes it. I think he's the best three-point shooter statistically, like in the league for the last 5 years or close. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker gives them a hard-playing guard who's pretty awesome. He was like basically, when he came to Utah, he was basically out of the league. So awesome for Nickeil. Super nice guy. I remember Nickeil came to Utah, and the first thing he did was ask for a picture of every staff member so he could memorize every staff member's name. It's a good kid. So neat to see him get the bag. And Atlanta now has kind of built themselves this offensive juggernaut with Trae Young and Kristaps Porzingis with some really good defensive players in Jalen Johnson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Reece Shashay, and Dyson Daniels. Quin's got himself a roster there. That's going to be fun to watch. And the East is wide open. Cleveland's the best team in the East, but we'll see if they have too many scars. They got rid of Karis LeVert, which will actually be good for them. Houston added Clint Capella and Dorian Finney-Smith. Houston's going to actually have enough minutes, I think, out of this whole thing with Durant. I find this just interesting. I don't know why. You might not care. Gary Trent Jr. is a minimum player again. Like, that's where, like, some of this is, like, on the Collin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson stuff is really interesting. Gary Trent Jr. in Toronto a few years ago averaged 18 points a game, shot 38% from three, and you would have thought would have had great value. The next year he averaged 17 points a game, shot 37% from three. Then he scored 14 points a game and 39% from three. He played 35, 32, and 30 minutes a night. Like, this was a 30-night-a-minute player in the NBA. And instead, he's been a minimum player now for 2 years in a row. Because he doesn't play a lot of defense. But last year he shot 42% for Milwaukee. Like, the Gary Trent Jr. at 6'5", 209 as a shooting guard that shoots 40% from three is somehow a minimum player in the NBA is surprising to me. I still don't understand anything New Orleans is doing. Kayvon Looney signed. I think Kayvon Looney is cooked. Watching him, I thought he was great in Golden State, and Steve Kerr kind of knew how to use him. But you also may just need a veteran to be around Zion Williamson, and then maybe that's the answer because he is the ultimate pro from everything I've heard. But I don't think his legs work anymore. His knees seem to hurt him a great deal. And the last one out there is kind of what happens with Al Horford. The Malik Beasley situation is really bad. Hopefully the investigation turns the way Terry Rozier's did. This is 3 NBA investigations into gambling recently. This is real NBA. This is real professional sports. And I think that's it. Yeah, nothing. The LeBron thing's really fascinating. LeBron's pissed. It's Luka's team. Rich Paul even said it. I know the Lakers need to worry about Luka Doncic, But I, as LeBron James' agent, need to worry about LeBron James. So they're pissed because the Lakers have become Luka's team. Pretty interesting. That is Locked On Jazz today. Back with you tomorrow. We'll get you in a little bit more into the Summer League and all that's going on there. Scott Morrison had some interesting comments about Walter Clayton Jr. We'll have that for you tomorrow on Locked On Jazz. This is now time to send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA channel. Check out Locked On NBA every day, all season long.